Welcome to the Beyond Thundera podcast. I am Sean Buddha McEwen, author of Hall of Omens and Hall of Omens Thunderverse. And I'm today I'm alongside many people, but, for the co-host of the Beyond Thundera podcast, ThunderCats and SilverHawks and comic strip writer, showrunner, an all-around good guy who's meeting everybody today for the very first time, which we're going to get into, Peter Lawrence. And today we've got a very, very special show. As you can see, we're joined by several of the voice cast from ThunderCats, SilverHawks, the comic strip, and you'd know them from many other things. But today we've got Peter Newman with us. We've got Larry Kenney. And I was lucky enough to pull off a surprise guest for both Larry and Peter Newman. And well, even also Peter Lawrence, Maggie Wheeler, who you may not know, but you should know if you're a fan. She was the voice of Steelheart and Melodia from the SilverHawks. And if you're like, oh man, I've seen her before, I didn't know this. Yes, you probably also know her as Janice from Friends and from being on Seinfeld and many, many other TV shows. So everyone, thank you for being here today.
Thank you. Buddha, thank you.
Yes.
Oh, of course. And this is, I kind of touched that on the intro. This is very special to me because in the mind of a fan, when you think, oh man, they all know each other and everything, it's just kind of one of those things. But then when you think about it logistically, like I've had many jobs where I don't know the people in the office that work 20 feet from me. And it's like, this is the same type of scenario. Peter Lawrence, this is the first time you are all actually meeting Peter Lawrence, and Peter Lawrence is actually meeting you all for the first time today.
Yeah, I think it's very strange. I mean, it's great to see you, but it's also very strange for me because it's 41 years ago since we did the show. And I only got it sort of inveigled into this whole ThunderCats world very briefly when David Crichton wrote his book. But then when Buddha wrote the first book, he called me for an interview and we became friends. And so I'm really totally new to this, and I'm still stunned by it. I mean, I said yesterday's podcast, it's just bizarre. The enthusiasm and it's a sort of family, and of course as dysfunctional as every other family too. But one of the bizarre things that I said yesterday is that I've had a couple of calls from people. Obviously, I don't know them. I mean, people who love the show, asking for personal advice. Wait a minute. You're asking somebody who's been married twice and bankrupt once. I mean, the worst person you can ever imagine to ask for advice. But it's actually very humbling. It's because I realized that this thing that only took, 2 years of my life, it probably touched way more people than any of the other rubbish I've written,
So, Peter, next time somebody asks you for advice, tell them the best thing you can do is watch the reruns. It's all there.
I try to put them onto Robert Q says.
Peter, I think you'd be like hearing that your name is mentioned by the fans a lot at Comic-Cons, where people come up, we're signing autographs and stuff, and people that, have you seen Peter Lawrence lately? When's the last time so you're one of us. They know who you are.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, Peter, maybe you and I should we should just crash the party next time.
Gate crash one. Yeah. No, we should do that. Yeah.
No, I agree. I mean, obviously, he says that people know I'm friends with Peter. They always are telling me, "Oh, when's Peter doing the show?" And Maggie, you too. Since the new book came out, and they've seen that, I did an interview with you, and they're like, "Oh, when's Maggie going to start doing these shows? Is she ever going to do them?" And I was like, "Hey, I don't know. I hope she does. Now that there's a new Melodia toy, there's a new figure out. I know a lot of people are very excited at the possibility of having." You sign that figure. There's also new Steelheart figures.
I would love to. I mean, Sean is the one who told me that. He's like, how do you feel about the new toy? I said, new toy? I didn't get the memo, but I'm very excited about that. I think it's fantastic.
Well, I definitely think we can definitely, if you're interested in coming to these shows, I know you've got a very busy schedule with everything you do. I know it can be arranged because I know the fan base has been very eager to finally have you at a show to get your autograph and talk to you about your time with the Silverhawks. Like,
Well,
I say very, very eager.
Thank you. That's great to
Thank
know.
you.
Okay, we'll follow up, everybody.
Okay, Maggie, Peter, and Lynn and I have the same agent for Comic Cons, and I know he'd love it. He would love him. Scott booking these fantastic.
Look, we're making deals in the back room, everybody.
It's funny. I actually talked to Scott, and he's like, "Hey, pass my information along, and we'll get all that handled." And actually, Scott,
it has begun. I really look
Good
forward
guy,
to
too.
the same room with all of
He's a
you.
great guy. He's a great
Scott's
guy.
great, and he's actually we've done a episode of this podcast with Scott. He's fantastic, and we'll get it all connected, and we'll get you at a couple of the shows. I know you're currently on the East Coast, but I think you're based out on the West Coast normally.
I am based on the West Coast, and I hope to get back there very soon. Now, when the show first started, I know you guys have probably talked about all of this a million times, but I'm just so excited to be at the party for a moment. But when I loved working on that show so much, and we did something on that show that I never had the chance to do again. And I just would love to hear, everybody's recollections of it. But, we used to gather around this table, little round conference table with a new script, and we all had a shot at whatever it was, whether it was a child, a monster, a tree, a woman, a man, and some other being from another galaxy. There was no restriction on that. That we all sat around and figured out what rose to the surface. Do you guys remember that? And did you do that on other shows as well? Because I just felt like that was quite unique to that time for me.
And then we talked about it as auditioning in the studio. That group, because that's what I remember more from ThunderCats, that we'd be in the studio standing in front of our mics, and whatever there may be artwork on the glass, standing facing the glass behind the control booth, and they're saying, "Oh, this is what we're looking for. This is what it looks like. There's a little bit about the character. Okay, anybody got any ideas?" Sometimes we had a little advance notice about it, and sometimes it was just right there in the studio.
And I don't think the public, most of the public knows this, but we 5 or 6, basically it was a 5 or 6 person cast. Who's burning?
Sorry, my duck's here.
There's a line you don't hear every day.
The Colombian frog, I think.
Was that what it was?
I thought I should turn it off. I used to live on a boat, and when that bloody thing rang, I'd look up and say, "What? Is there a duck in the sea?"
I was going to say, you got to promise if you come to one of the conventions, bring the duck.
I'm sorry about that.
That's right. I knew it wasn't me. My duck's outside.
Right.
What were you saying, Larry?
Oh, I'm just saying that, we all know, of course, but the public, most people don't realize it was just the 5 of us who did every voice on the shows.
Yeah.
That's a lot of voices that we all did. It was,
Now,
and I hadn't thought about it before either, Maggie, but I've never worked on anything else where they could just say, "Who wants to try for this part?"
Yeah, I mean,
That's
I just
at the
love
very
that.
beginning when you first got hired.
Exactly. And I remember, I just it was so long ago, but as if it was yesterday, I remember that sort of adrenaline rush of being given that opportunity in the presence of your fellow actors. And I do, Peter, I don't with Silverhawks, I can't remember whether that happened in the studio, but I do remember us sitting around a round table and just having those scripts thrown at us and kind of, workshopping the newer characters in that way. And it was just really fun.
Yeah.
So why do you think that happened on those, at least the 2 shows? I don't remember much about Tiger Sharks, because it's never happened on any other show that I've worked on. I mean, the closest I ever came to that is a story about George Kennedy, who I read for a German military officer. It was an animated piece. And at the end of the session, he said, I want to read for the grandmother. Now, the grandmother was like an 80-year-old woman in a wheelchair, German. And he was unbelievable. He was fantastic. That's the only other time that I've seen that kind of, where you just go into the studio, you're the ensemble cast, and whatever it is, you're going to have to play that A part.
Yeah.
I've never seen that before.
I think you have to credit Rankin and Bass for that.
Agreed.
Because they really established that at the very beginning, and that's how we did it.
Yeah, and I think
can't imagine anybody else had control over that except for them.
Yeah,
I don't think they did it with any other show, though. I don't think they did it with the Christmas shows. I mean, it was very much more, much stricter casting.
Right.
I feel like sometimes I wonder whether it was pressure, the pressure of production, because it's not just your half. The same applies to our half, to the office half, if you like. That people look back and say, we never worked on a show like that before.
Yeah.
But I think it was evidence of their belief in the ensemble that they chose, which is so lovely. I mean, the only other situation I can liken that to is Friends, because the culture on that set was very collaborative. They knew who they put in who they cast, and they really wanted to give a lot of room for the creativity that those actors brought to the stage. So they would talk about writing and talk about jokes, and it was the same thing with all of us. They believed that we had it in us, and so rather than making executive decisions and saying, well, Maggie's a woman, so she should play that, or whatever, Peter is this way, so he should play that, or Larry can do that. They just threw it wide open, and they didn't predetermine, which gave us, it was so much fun to have a chance to play.
Yeah.
As I've reflected to the fans when we've done panels at some of these conventions with the panel, my very first experience with them was the initial audition for the series, not knowing what it might turn into or anything. But my recollection of it was that I was in their office, and I don't even know if they were recording me. I don't think so. And Lee was there, and Jules was there. And basically they described characters, a superhero, an adult superhero, and then a young character. I ended up doing the boy, Wile E. Cat, and everything in between. And my recollection is that I was just throwing everything at them that I could think of, because there it was. They were open to listening to it, and so I was going to take my best shot at it all. And so that carried forward into the studio of auditioning for, new characters and all. So it started for me right at the very first audition.
And when I got hired for the job, I was in Los Angeles, and I had just I had worked on this show that Lorne Michaels had directed for prime time, a sketch comedy show called The New Show that was sort of short-lived but had a lot of incredible people on it. And in order to get that job, I had to do 6 minutes of stand-up, which I had never done. So I built this 6 minutes of character-driven stuff and a lot of voices and told a lot of stories. And that sort of lived on beta tape somewhere. And Lee reached out to Lorne Michaels and said, do you have anybody that you would recommend? And he sent her my 6 minutes of kind of character-driven stand-up. So that was my audition for the show, because they heard me do 4, 5, 6 voices, 7 voices of different characters just in that thing that I did. And so I think they believed in all of us going in.
That's great.
Well, I mean, one of the things from my point of view, it was very executive light. The whole of Rankin Bass was, once I think, I don't, I guess you could take this as an insult to them. I think that once Arthur and Jules knew things were going, that's it. That's it. Just do it, and I'm going to go and have a drink, or I'm going to go and do whatever it's I'm going to do.
Move to the Bahamas or something.
I mean, compared with how we work today, when you've got 52 and a half executives and in the office and two creative people, and and somebody clipping their toenails, and it's just completely different. It's completely different. Let me ask you a couple of very conventional questions, and forgive me, but obviously you guys, you start out somewhere at some point in your life. I'm going to be an actor. That's my ambition. I want to be an actor. I mean, I know some people get into it accidentally, but let's just assume that's not the case. What put you into voice acting?
I'll go first. I was, according to my mother, I was doing funny voices and impressions from the time I could talk. I mean, I would watch cartoon shows, and even 5, 6 years old, I remember going to school and doing routines that I'd memorized, from Rocky and Bullwinkle, shows like that. And then I got started very early in radio. I was a disc jockey when I was 15. And so I naturally incorporated that into my radio show. I would, play a Beatles record and then do a little character voice, bit, and then move on. And so I had been doing it forever, even though I never did it in the professionally, except on the radio, But then when I got to New York, where all the commercials are done, most of them, then that led right into, in fact, the first major commercial I ever did was for Cocoa Puffs cereal, and I did that for 40 years. And I did Count Chocula, 40 years. It just stopped about 5 years ago.
So if anybody needs money, you can borrow.
Well, I've been lucky like that. I still have a client, Skittles Candy, that I've been doing for 25 years. The guy at the end says, "Feel the rainbow, taste the rainbow." That's me.
Wow.
That's incredible. That's amazing.
Anyway, but that's my answer to your question about how you got into it. How we got.
Well, how do you get a job as a DJ at 15?
I was taking a radio class in high school, believe it or not, in this little town in Illinois, Pekin, Illinois, a town of about 20,000 people. And we had, for some reason, a full studio. We didn't broadcast on the air. We broadcast over phone lines, and the local radio station carried it. Like they were like our distributor. But it was just to be heard in town. It was called School Scope. What's going on in the schools in town today? What are they having for lunch? So the mothers would know what not to cook tonight, stuff like that. And it was a 10-minute show. But it wasn't until years later I was really established in the business. I would look back and I thought, how in the hell did that happen? That somebody lobbied and argued to get that high school to put a radio studio in there so we can become a disc jockey or something, or a newsman. So I was really lucky there.
Fantastic. So then, Peter, what about you?
I was just thinking that apparently Larry and I had the same mother. That was my reputation in my family, and my mother was the one who steered me toward voice acting.
Yeah, but she always liked you best.
Yeah, and there was a good reason, Larry. When I was in my in my early teens, I learned how to play the guitar. And then in high school, a couple of buddies and I formed a little folk singing trio back when folk music was, in its prime there, the early 60s. So I did have the impulse to do some kind of performance, but I never thought of it as anything professional. And yes, I always was doing funny, silly voices since I was a kid. And I was in community theater for one season. I tried a community chorus for one season. Clearly, they had very low standards. And when I went to get a serious job, I became, because I didn't know where I was going, what the hell I was doing. I ended up as a clerk, a back office clerk on Wall Street, because, you have to get a serious job somewhere. And so I didn't do my first voiceover audition until I was 30. Talk about taking your time to blossom. And it was, whereas Larry got Cocoa Puffs, I got the voice of a parrot for a chain of dairy stores out in the Midwest that I maybe one cycle's worth. I don't, but the way I described it was having gone on my first real audition, gotten the job. The gods of commercials, sunk their hook in my mouth. They go fishing, and then they got me, and because I thought, this is going to be easy. And then, of course, reality sets in, and I had to. I can remember being in a studio. Must have been one of the first times, and where I was standing in front of one of those great Newman microphones, and probably out of nerves, jingling the change in my pocket, and saying, "Wow, I can hear the change in my pocket jingling," and being so impressed with it. Really professional. And it just, and so it took me time then to learn the trade, the craft. And then I was there, and there it was. It was, I guess it was 7 or 8 years, probably 7 years for the audition later, for the audition for ThunderCats. I did a few things in between, odd jobs, lost jobs, that I was called for, but not ready to really read for. And then there came ThunderCats, and it was a good year. That 1985 was a good year.
And the rest is history.
Yes, the rest is history.
So, and then, Maggie, what's your story?
My story is that I think the prerequisite is you're the family clown, and and I was imitating all kinds of people that walked in and out of our home, friends of my mother's imitating my mother, whatever, I was obviously going for the laugh. And I started sort of pursuing this idea of acting professionally when I was in high school. And I was, it was very difficult for me to get hired to be, I thought the sort of pinnacle of success would be that if I could book a Burger King commercial and I could be in the little orange outfit, like flipping the burger, but it wasn't meant to be. So I found a manager at the time when I was, I think, 16 years old. And I think after a while, they felt a little sorry for me. So they threw me into a crowd for a voiceover at Clack Studios for a group called the REUNITES in the 70s. And I was in a group full of kids, and all we had to say was, "Ooh, the REUNITES. Ooh, the REUNITES. Ooh, the REUNITES." And then they said, "Who's the kid with the low voice?" And I thought, shit, I'm going to get fired from my first paying job. And they pulled me out and gave me the spot. And then I worked for Clack Studios pretty routinely for the next while for MTV. And I ended up working for, Oxy, whatever that pimple cream was, Oxy 5, I don't know, all kinds of things, but a lot of stuff for rock and roll. And so that's how I got my start as a paid working actor, was in voiceover. And I was in heaven. And I always wanted to do cartoons. It was like the dream. So after, I did a lot of extra work and all the things. And then when I was 24, I guess, or so, my sister's ex-boyfriend's current girlfriend was working for Lorne Michaels, and they were going to be casting this show. And she's the one who said, do you want to audition for this? And of course, that was the other dream, because if I wasn't going to be doing a million voices on cartoons, I would like to be doing a million characters on SNL. It was like that, those were the two secret goals. And so I was very excited to audition for Lorne. But as I said, I had to create something, 6 minutes of something. And I locked myself in a room and cried for about a week and a half. I thought, I can't do it. I don't know how to do it. But, I did do it. And I had a great deal of fun kind of bringing those types of characters to life. And then, of course, I was so thrilled to work for Rankin Bass because, as everybody knows, once you're in that studio, there are no limitations, not how young, not how little, not how big, not how old, not how green, not how plant, not how animal, and that, as an actor, it's just total, utter freedom. And I've always loved it. And for me, that was just a dream come true. And I've been lucky to work on in animation in other ways over the years, but that stands out as an incredibly special time.
Peter, just go back to, you kind of skipped over it. How did you get the audition at Rankin Bass? Was it a conventional process?
Yeah, it was extremely conventional. It was an agent that I knew because I had actually done some talent residual bookkeeping for them. And that's another story, how I got into that, which involves my dear sainted late mother. But that'll have to be another time. But because I knew them and they were familiar with, by that time, they were encouraging me to try, if I wanted to do a voiceover thing, which I guess I made it clear that I did. They encouraged me to do a demo reel, which was on reel-to-reel tape at the time. And once again, I put everything on it. The sound of an elephant, bad impressions of celebrities, the classics, Boris Karloff, Peter Lorre, that kind of from the 1930s and 40s. I mean, anyway. And so they were the ones who were introduced me to another agent with whom I ultimately signed. But then when they got the call from Rankin Bass looking for people for ThunderCats, and I was only signed for commercials, so they were free to call me and send me. And so they called me and said, "Hey, there's this audition for a cartoon. Do you want to go and try it?" And they didn't say it's going to be 65 episodes. It's going to be because nobody knew anything about that at the time. It was an audition for a cartoon. I don't even know if the word series was mentioned, but it was a cartoon, and that's how I got that audition. It was just another audition. Of course, as with any audition, you hope you get the job and you try to give it your all. But it was a unique audition, as I described before. Just being able to go into their office and just blurt out any voice that came into my head. So.
How much of it is of this whole life and world is luck and serendipity that this group somehow staggered together. They probably would never even have spoken to each other in a bar. Yeah. And and then of course the other thing that commercials. I think without I can't speak for you, but it sounds like it. Without commercials. Commercials are what made me first realize, wait a minute, I don't have to go and dig holes in the road. I can write for a living, and it was so easy insofar as they just threw because it was, for me, when I started commercials, it was like a golden age in London, age out of which Alan Parker and Hugh Hudson and God knows who else came out, and hanging about 28 miles behind me, but they just threw money at it. You're going to direct that commercial. You show up on stage, and there's a crew that's bigger than any feature film crew you've ever seen, and there are people bringing you breakfast and this, that, and the other. You have no idea what you're doing, But I don't care. I got to pretend I know what I'm doing. It's like, but without all that. I don't know, all the the income that we made from commercials. Without any of that, I don't know what I'd have done.
The luck. The luck part of it is absolutely true. I can't tell you how many times chatting with after we started doing ThunderCats, and I guess after it came out and it was a hit. Talking to friends, in the business, who'd meet at auditions or whatever, and they say, "Hey, I hear you're doing that ThunderCats thing." I said, "Yeah." I said, "Great, what an incredible job." And they say, "I never even got to audition for it." So yeah, luck. Why did I get the chance? Why did we get the chance to audition for it, and so many other people didn't?
As I think about that, the audition process and whatever, I'm remembering now. It's not like they saw that audition tape that I did for the new show and hired me. Lee called me. I was in Los Angeles. She explained to me what it was. And she said, "Would you like to come audition for it? You'd have to fly yourself here, and we can't guarantee that we're going to give it to you."
Wow.
And I said, I'll be there. Tell me the time and tell me the day. And I flew back from LA.
Good for you.
Well, Rankin Bass were never too generous about flying people here, there, or anywhere. Come to think of it,
yeah. I was so ready. I'm like, I'm there. I'll whatever. Just.
Yeah. That's basically. That's not my story. It's your story. But that's basically what happened to me on ThunderCats. I got a call from Jules. So I get over to New York. What? Yeah, I've never written animation, but what are you talking about? Well, just get over here. Were you going to pay? We'll put you up in a hotel. It was the crappiest hotel existed in New York, but I don't know. It's just maybe that's all part of the charm of it, I don't know.
It makes for great story,
Yeah, it's part of the journey. Part of the journey.
But going back to the luck, I mean, without being too heavy about it, I think you got to have luck, you got to have talent, and you got to have persistence. And it almost kind of doesn't matter what the proportions are. If you have a boatload of luck, you could get by on Zippo talent, which, we see in various people. I mean, writers, I'm not necessarily talking about actors. I mean, there are a number of writers I've worked with, and I thought, how the hell did you get this job? You can't even spell your own name, And then other people who've got all the talent and, a lot of luck, but they just don't have the persistence. They just don't hang in there. I think it's an interesting balance there.
I think for me that when I started doing voiceovers, I felt so much that I had found the right spot for me that I was more than willing to put up with the inconsistencies and the hit and miss and the dry spells and the all of that, because I was doing what I guess I wanted to do. So
yeah.
Larry Kenney, can we hear you? I don't think we can hear you.
Oh,
Yeah, I can't.
I had muted my mic. I'm sorry.
Oh, there we go.
I thought I saw you trying to say something a couple of times, and I thought there's nothing coming from over there.
I muted my mic to cough.
Well, I thought you were just acting.
No, speaking of luck, it's been my experience too that there are things that I auditioned for and didn't get, and you're just so damn. I could have used that. I wish I had. Yeah. And then something comes along that you would not have got if you had taken that first job. You know what I mean? That's true in anybody's life, I'm sure. But in this business, it seems to be, more glaringly true.
Very true. Yeah. Very true.
I had one question, kind of going back to the audition process that you were talking about, like kind of like the round table type, being able to go back and forth. So when you did that, I know Peter Newman, you were saying you went into the office and you thought Jules and Lee were there, but when you were in the actual, recording studio, like, workshopping these character voices, who were you, like, who was actually there from Rankin Bass? Was it Lee Daniker or
it was Lee?
You guys was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to be inserting.
No, it was
really how that worked.
When we were doing it in the studio, Lee was behind the glass.
Okay.
And we would take whoever wanted to take a shot at a character would, and then basically it would be quiet for a moment or two, and then the voice would come down from on high behind the glass and say who was going to get the voice. We like that one, you got it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I do want to mention, so as the last month or so, we've been doing a few of these. So we've been talking to several of the people behind the glass, from Matthew Malik, Tony Giovanello. I'm saying Tony's name wrong. John Crenshaw. I know we've got, we've got a few others lined up, and they would even talk about like how it would seem like within the studio sessions, even behind the glass to the voice actors themselves, everyone was having a very good time, and it was like fun for everybody. Even when I know you were all working, it was all work, but it seemed like a very fun work environment.
It was so much fun.
Yeah, lots of fun.
Yeah.
I remember, those names coming back to me now. The guys on the other side of the glass, the engineers and the producers. Remember Larry Crenshaw?
Yeah.
Your name Larry Crenshaw.
It was John Crenshaw.
John Crenshaw.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
John
Larry Frank. Larry Frank, John Crenshaw.
Yeah, now I got it straight now. Yeah, John Crenshaw. We had a thing with, it's a stupid thing. Every day, the first time we saw each other, I'd go, "Crenshaw, you're fired." And that was it was just that kind of a name, Crenshaw, get in here.
He was great. So very fun stories about him. He seems like he was a fun guy to have behind the glass.
I've heard rumors that he's the one who put the outtakes on the internet originally.
Oh, are they out
Yeah.
there?
Oh, you've never heard the outtakes?
No.
Oh, Maggie, I'll send you the link.
Finish,
They
yeah.
are
Yeah, there
fantastic.
you go. So, yeah, I mean Crenshaw was one of those guys who was so relentless that, I mean, very funny but relentless, and you eventually want to say, "Fuck's sake, John, shut up!" You know. But he was great on the interview we just did with him.
Yeah.
And we got Larry coming up, and one of the things we want to do is put you all on together, recording crew, everybody we can get on, and then as I said to Buddha and I could just go and have a drink somewhere, just leave you at it,
Oh yeah.
I remember running into Matthew.
Oh, God, you guys.
Matthew's probably, other than Jim Meskimen, who also wrote the show, who I've run into over the years. But I ran into Matthew Malik, I don't know how many years back now, and he was telling me, he was sort of reminiscing about what happened when we recorded Melodia's song, shrieking, decibel busting, glass breaking song, and how excruciating it was for him to edit. They had to listen to it over. His wife was like, "I thought I was just going to jump out a window." I mean, just having to hear that sound over and over and over again. So,
Let me ask you a question about, as I understand it, because I wasn't there, that Matthew and Tony Giovanni directed as well, right?
I don't recall. Lee was always there.
Yeah, my recollection, is Lee directing,
Really?
but then I'm sure there were a lot of things about it that I don't remember. So
Yeah, they said like towards the end, in the very beginning it was always Lee. She was always there from the get go, but then by the end she kind of let them not necessarily take the reins, but go ahead and do the directing and kind of she may have been there for it, but yeah, she apparently they were saying that they got more responsibility on that end.
Yeah.
I think this could be the first schism between Catholicism and Protestantism, because I think Matthew and Tony, unless they've seen the devil, both directed a lot of episodes. And it's very interesting that you guys would only remember Lee, because Lee was really the, in the best sense of the word, the policeman of the show.
Yeah.
She was the cop of the writing. She was the cop. She was everything.
yeah.
She pulled the whole thing together.
What eventually kind of destroyed her. But it's interesting that her presence must have been so powerful that whether Tony or Matthew or anybody else was directing, no, it's Lee.
all we remember. Peter Lawrence, can I ask you a question?
You can ask me anything you like.
What do you remember about comic strip?
Yeah, thank you. Because I did want to get into the comic strip stuff since we have you here.
You know how there are nightmares that live with you forever? Comic strip, by that time, Maggie, first of all, Jules and I, having been, the one thing about this podcast is, that we don't pull any punches at all anywhere. We have enormous libel insurance. Jules and I had been very close friends. I worked with Jules on a movie way before ThunderCats, but by Tiger Sharks, by a comic strip, we were really not getting on very well together, and I should have left. I don't even know why I stayed on. I should have left. So Tiger Sharks itself, really basically a reboot of ThunderCats, kind of, but underwater. And who cares? And Action Adventure has died.
it was one of the adjective noun shows, right? Adjective noun.
Yeah, right.
SilverHawks.
Right. What can we do? Just put them underwater. That's fine. Mini Monsters or Camp Minimon or whatever it was called.
Yeah.
Why the hell would a kid who grew up in Africa, never even saw a cartoon until he was adolescent, never saw anything until he was nearly adult, what the hell would he know about an American summer camp? So I had to find somebody else to do that with Lee Schneider. Street Frogs. Why would you put a middle class, semi-educated white guy in charge of a show about black kids on the street? No, they're frogs. They're frogs. They're not black kids. And by the way, and then just to punish him, send him off to Washington to talk to Jesse Jackson and Operation Push. Okay, all right, so we'll do that. And then finally, Karate Cat. Well, since I've been reading, Dashiell Hammett, and since I was, probably 8 years old or 10 years old, excuse me, that was heaven for me. I love that show.
Me too.
So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's kind of more or less roughly how it was.
I'm so interested to hear your reflections on it, because for me, I was given this opportunity to play, even more characters, to do more things, and also to do the sort of live action piece of that hosting bit, and to play both of the sisters in Karate Cat and a number of the boys and the girls in Camp Minimon or the Mini Monsters, whatever. Anyway, so it was a real, it was a heyday for me. I had the best time, but of course, as we were doing it, the sort of tension of the end nearing was palpable. There was something, there was something in the air. But of course, I was, a hired hand, so I couldn't see behind the scenes, and I didn't really know what was happening. So I knew my side.
Well, it's interesting that you would have felt any tension. What we should have done, what we really should have done, is we should have booted Tiger Sharks out. Maybe Minimon, because who cares? And certainly Street Fox. Yeah. And we should have made Karate Cat a full-on. Yeah. It was the right show at the time. Had we really pulled our heads out and said, wait a minute, we need to write this more contemporary, and this is the show that we can hang the Rankin Bass hook on. But by that time, Action Adventure was dead by then. All that kind of action adventure.
For me, it's funny to hear you talk about it that way, because I had no such insights on any of these things. They were jobs, and I was happy to do them. Did Tiger Sharks? I don't think I can remember any of the voices that I did for Tiger Sharks, but I can for Camp Minimon for some reason. It was, I guess it was a different thing, something I related to differently, something because I used voices like from one of the voices from the Dead End Kids, the Bowery Boys,
right.
Another voice that I remember pulling from an archetypal character actor from, the 40s, 30s, 40s, whatever. And so for me, it was just another, game to play. And I was thrilled to do it. So tension? I didn't sense any tension. I was working. What could be wrong? Yeah.
Right.
So.
Well, actually, I don't think any of us knew what the hell we were doing anyway. So it doesn't.
Peter, I just wanted to reflect back to you, since I've had the pleasure of meeting so many fans at these conventions, and so many of them use kind of the same words. Thank you for my childhood. Yeah. ThunderCat, particularly with ThunderCat, because it was success, they have such fond memories of it that it was clear to them as kids. I guess who were the good guys, who were the bad guys. There wasn't a lot of blood. And as I reflect to them when we talk about it, I said it was a different time then. And that Rankin Bass had the insight to hire the Peter Cusis, right? The psychologist, the child psychologist.
Robert Cusis, yeah.
Robert Cusis, yeah. No, I mean, look, I'm making light of a lot of it and joking about it, but actually, to hear so many people say this was so influential in my childhood. And somebody the other day was saying, a lot of kids were latchkey kids, and ThunderCats were basically the home base. Now, of course, if their parents had realized the person partly in charge of writing the scripts that you performed, that the latchkey kids were watching, they'd have probably said, "To hell with that, I'm going back home." No, I'm kidding.
Well, I've always been tremendously proud of the ThunderCats, especially because so many people, walk up to your table and have that same, just look at the whole thing there and they go, "Wow, man, you were my childhood." And many of them, even before the Comic-Cons and the internet and everything, I would get letters from people. I don't know how they found out who I was, but now it's all on the internet. But so many of them who would explain to me in varying degrees of detail that their childhood was not a great one. You know what I'm talking about? Sometimes they told me exactly what it was, but usually it was just I didn't have a very happy childhood. But that half hour that I was in my room watching ThunderCats, that all went away, and I've held that in my heart because, I mean, when you get a 45, 50-year-old man coming up, literally crying. Looking at the pictures and then telling you, "Man, this saved my life," makes you realize it's more than just a dumb cartoon show.
And
it definitely was. And a lot of the people we talk to now will say things like, "There isn't anything like that out there now." Now, I don't know whether that's true because I don't watch any of that, but a lot of ThunderCats fans are looking for something that they can share with their kids. That has that kind of ThunderCats or even Silverhawks vibe to it, and apparently there is nothing there. And like I say, I look back and think, it's 2 years of my life, but it certainly, I'm sure it touched more people than anything else I've ever done. On the other hand, one can't take oneself too seriously. I mean, it's a show about people that are cats that could breathe in space and things like that.
Wore funny outfits. I mean, although to admit, Tygra did look good in those stripes. Come on.
Do you guys remember? I don't know whether we all went together or it's like it's so vague. It was so long ago. But do you remember going to some kind of ThunderCats SilverHawks on Ice event at the Ice Capades in New York?
It was ThunderCats Live. They were on roller skates. It was at Madison Square Garden.
Thank you, John, because I remember going and I'm I know everybody was moving and I know there was some kind of a rink and I know our voices were being just blasted out of massive loudspeakers.
It's on YouTube. You can see it on YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah, you can find the commercials for it are actually out there. And funny enough, over the last couple of years, I've become friends with several of the cast from that. And actually, when we were in South Carolina this past November at a show called Retro Toy Con, one of the women that she was funny enough, she actually played Steelheart in the show, came out to the show, and she was joined me at the show, signing autographs. I got to meet everybody. I know I introduced her to Larry and Peter Newman for the weekend. It was fun. They're great people and had such a great time. I'm actually working on having several of the cast are going to be on the podcast at one time and coming up sometime soon.
All right, I'm glad to have that clarified that they were roller skating.
Oh yeah.
Right. But I mean, the Madison Square Garden.
Hitler on Ice.
Yeah.
That was the first time that I really, just a serious moment. That's the first time I really understood how gigantic the show was. Because I don't know how many kids there are, 20,000 people in Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
All holding a little plastic illuminated sword up, going, "Oh!"
Yeah.
And I said, "Wait a minute,
It's incredible.
it's incredible."
It's
amazing.
incredible.
Yeah.
Also, actually, that kind of leads me to a question for Peter, Newman, Maggie, and Larry. When did you all three of you know that the show had become something larger than just a show? Oh yeah, I did a voice on that one thing.
Well, I tell
when
that
was
story.
it real?
No, I'm sorry.
No, well, please go ahead.
That's asked at every Comic-Con, in panels.
Yeah.
And the answer I always give is I knew after the show had been on the air for 7 or 8 months, we knew we had a good show. We knew we had a hit show. But I didn't realize how big it was until one year, about two weeks before Christmas, I was shopping at Toys R Us. Remember them? God bless them. And the previous time to that day that I had been there, there was one aisle on both sides of all ThunderCats action figures and Thunder Tanks and stuff like that. One aisle. This time when I went back, there were 3 aisles, all
Wow.
ThunderCats stuff.
Wow.
And I thought, man, this show's a hit,
Yeah.
And sure enough, it was.
And it's all over the world too. It's everywhere.
I forgot to tell. I want to tack on a little story that goes with that. That day, I'm standing there looking at all the ThunderCats stuff, and I see these 2 boys, probably 9 to 11 years old, and standing in front of the action figures. And I heard as I walked closer, one of them said, "I'm going to get Tygra. He's the coolest one, And the other guy said, "I don't know. No, Panthro. I like Panthro. I'm going to get him." Well, I couldn't help myself. So I just kind of walked over and I said, "Hey, guys, you got to get Lion-O. He's the one who says, ThunderCats, ho!" And they looked at me like we're the police,
Their heads explode right there in the ThunderCats aisle.
And the kids just looked at me. So I quickly walked away. But as I'm walking away, one of them said, "He didn't even sound like Lion-O." I thought, you little bastards, you only knew. You'd have to clean up the aisle.
I've got to go ahead, Maggie.
I was just going to say, Sean, I think for me, the answer to that question is slightly different in that I will just say, to be an actor and to sign on to a job and to suddenly be contracted for 65 episodes of something. Yeah. To this day, my dresser, my couch, all that came through SilverHawks. I lived in a little apartment in New York, but every piece of furniture I bought and every piece of furniture that moved with me to California, I bought because of SilverHawks. That's how and so anyway, 65 episodes was just incredibly luxurious, constant, dependable work. Nothing like it.
That's right.
The story that, as Larry has mentioned, when we do the panels, we talk about some of the aspects of this. And for me, the sense that it was more than just this, just the job that I was having fun doing. We had friends at the time, and the wife was a social worker who worked with kids from broken families. And she was aware that I had worked on this cartoon, and then it was running. And she asked me, did I have anything that I could, a picture of any of the characters, anything that I could sign, because 2 of the kids that she was working with were big ThunderCats fans. And she thought that, they would really enjoy that. And so I don't even remember how I got the images, because, we didn't have stuff then. And so I did get something and signed them to the kids and gave them, and she the feedback I got from her was that they were so thrilled to get something personally to them from a character from their favorite cartoon. And given the stresses and strains of the lives they were living as young kids, that has stayed with me all these years as an indication, like Larry says, when it was more than just a job. It had ripples that went out into the world. And that's when I was first aware of that possibility.
No, it was definitely more than a job. I mean, I remember when I first showed up at the office, maybe it was, no, even then it wasn't just a job. I mean, I don't feel like that about work, but it really is quite a kind of giant event. And, I spent a lot of time in South America, and it's huge. Yeah, it's gigantic. Forgive me, I've told this story before, but I lecture from time to time, if that's the right word, in a university. And my usual thing is, look, here's my theme, but I don't really care. If you have some other interesting thing you want to talk about, that's fine. And this theme was, artificial intelligence, left brain, right, all kind of rubbish, and in Spanish. So, but anything you want to ask about, just ask. We'll talk about something else. So if I go on the thing, blah 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 blah, within 30 seconds, hand goes up. These are kids, they're 18, 19, 20. Hand goes up. How did you get into ThunderCats? This show hasn't even been broadcast to you. What are you talking about? And then they said, one of them comes. I said, "Well, please don't go. Please don't go after the 2 hours. 2 hours."
Yeah, it's amazing.
This kid comes up with a package of CDs. Would you sign these? Or I don't know. Maybe they were VHS. I don't remember. Here's the story. My grandmother bought them, and she gave them to my mother, and my mother's giving them to me. And I thought, well, how old does that make me? But I mean, that's the reach. It's just gigantic.
Yeah. Oh, I love it when we see, and more we see whole families coming up at Comic-Cons, 2-3 generations, grandparents and parents and little kids. And I love that because I always ask the kids, did your mom and dad, help get you into it? And they, yeah. And sometimes the parents say, it's tough to get them to watch something new these days, something that you want them to watch, something that's new to them. But they always say they love it now. They'll take my DVD and go in the room and watch it for 3 hours.
Larry, do you think that a kid now of ThunderCat watching age, whatever age that is, I mean, let's just for the sake of argument say 8 or 9, do you think that an 8 or 9-year-old now has the focus to watch a 22-minute narrative show like that?
That's a tough question. I don't know. All things else being equal, I don't know why it would have changed so much. Although I will say, I'm doing a couple of shows now, Teen Titans Go and Pokemon Horizons. And especially the Pokemon, it's totally different from 80s cartoons. It's anime for one thing, but it's all just so soft and nice. And there's no violence. There's unsettling things occasionally that the kids have to deal with in the show, but there's never any fighting or anything like that. So and I think that's pretty much the biggest difference today that I've seen. I don't watch a lot of cartoons, but the ones I do catch a glimpse of, but it occurs to me that they're not in a lot of ways different.
Peter, with what you were saying about it, in South America being big and other places, over the decades that my wife and I have traveled, we've run into people, and it reached the point where if I saw somebody of a certain age, I remember one young fellow we were in Hong Kong, which is where my wife is from, and we were in a coffee shop, and at the next table were a group of young people, and one young fellow had like a Superman, a T-shirt. And so I said, okay, this is a guy who likes cartoons. And so I said, okay, I got to ask. And I went to him and said, hey, you ever hear of a cartoon, ThunderCats? And, oh, yes, ThunderCats. I'm from the Philippines, and we saw ThunderCats. And, blah, blah, blah. And so I said, and so I got to take a picture with the family and, all the good stuff that goes with that. And then I've met people here who were from South America who first heard ThunderCats in Spanish. Mm-hmm. When they were real young, and then came here and continued to watch it in English.
I think it was Cosmocats first, wasn't it? In the Latin speaking.
Cosmocats is France, I think.
France, yeah.
France, yeah.
Yep. because of course the French have to have a different name.
Yeah, it's cool.
They couldn't possibly call it ThunderCats.
Well, one of the very interesting things too about the South American audience, Silverhawks is honestly huge, and especially like Mexico. Silverhawks is very big in Mexico. Like, I don't know if it's not nearly as large as ThunderCats in all of Latin America, because it's next level huge ThunderCats. But Silverhawks has a very big foundation, following, and core foundation of fans in I know Mexico, because there's even been times I'll be wearing a ThunderCats shirt, and wherever I go, I basically have a uniform at the event. I always have the shirt on, I have the book and everything. And it was an event in Jersey. I wasn't part of it. I was actually just there. And one of the guys came over. He was telling me he was from Mexico. He saw the shirt, started telling me about, oh yeah, I used to really like ThunderCats. It was great. But he's like, have you ever heard of Silverhawks? And then he went into his like, oh yeah, no, we love Silverhawks. Like, that was ThunderCats was great, but Silverhawks, that's where it's at. And like, he was taking photos with me and of the shirt, sending it to his brother. Wow. And I mean, yeah. So I've got nothing to do with either of these shows other than doing the books. So like, it's still in South America and all Latin America, both ThunderCats and Silverhawks still have such a huge following.
Incredible.
Well, somebody ought to write a thesis as to why Silverhawks is bigger in Spanish than ThunderCats.
Right.
I mean, it has. I mean, in Spain too, but all over Latin America, Silverhawks is gigantic.
Well, now, go ahead. I was going to say, I don't know if this is the actual reasoning behind it or whatnot, but I know from the toy end, one of the things why it did very well in Mexico and some of the South American countries. So while they weren't able to afford the officially released toys, there was tons of bootleg figures all over the place. So they'd go to like the flea markets and things like that. Even today, if you go to Mexico and South America, where they have these, giant flea markets, there's tons of bootleg Silverhawks and even ThunderCats. And that was one of the, as far as collectors and fans, collected or had a lot of those. So those were the things that really kept the passion going for them. Now, is that why? I don't know, but I think they were able to get the toys very cheap, so they were able to, enjoy it. And even if they weren't able to watch the cartoon, they made the cartoon in their bedroom with the toys. So
cool. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Now
I
need to
don't
do
know if that's the fact or not. What's that?
I need to do some deep dive on the internet just to see images of that, the bootleg toys and I think that's incredible.
Well, I'll tell you what,
Well,
I am slacking. I owe you all a copy of my new book, by the way, because you are all already. So you'll be getting, some stuff. You'll be able to see some of the South American toys. I know there isn't bootleg stuff in there, but you'll get to see everything, which is fun. But kind of talking about the toys really quick. I know we're kind of running. We can keep you for a little bit longer here, but one of the questions I had on the toy aspect of things. This goes to all four of you. So was ThunderCats and also Silverhawks the first show or project that you were involved with that ended up having an actual or action figure or toys or anything like that made at the time?
For me, it definitely was. Having a Steelheart toy was a first for me.
Yeah, I mean, the first cartoons I was involved with, so I don't know if some of the cartoon shows other from our era had characters. Well, He-Man, they have He-Man characters, but it's pretty cool, and they just keep coming. I mean, Super 7 keeps putting out newer and bigger Lion-O's and.
Oh yeah.
Have you seen the Thunder Tank they have now? It's literally 3 feet long. It holds all 5 of the action figures, all the ThunderCats, and you know how big they are. They fit into that Thunder Tank, which fits into the new Cat's Lair, which is like 4 or 5 feet high. It's incredible.
Oh my God!
It's amazing. It's like $1,200.
Wow. That's for the
I've signed a lot.
For the diehard fan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's we had Carl Lambert on a while ago, and his father built him a Cat's Lair. How big is it, Buddha? Like 10 feet tall.
I think he said it was about 3 to 5 feet
Gigantic.
tall. Yeah, he was a kid. There's a photo of him as a child next to it, and it like towers over him. Yeah.
Wow.
That was, Kyle Lambert. That's right. Yeah. But
I was cleaning. I told Sean this, but I was cleaning up some stuff in my house in LA sometime maybe about 6 months ago, or no, before that, because I've been in New York for so long. But anyway, I went into some closet and I saw a box, and I thought, God, I don't even recognize that box. It was like a sort of wooden carved box. I don't know where it came from, and I don't know what's in it. And I opened it up, and there was Steelheart and Copper Kid were in the box. So I didn't even know I had them. I didn't even know I still had them, or where they were.
Sure.
Copper Kid still, pressed the thing, the little leathery orange wings.
Just the whole thing is just in almost every aspect an astonishing experience. Whether it's the lack of oversight that freed us to do whatever we want to do, whether it's the fact that everybody looks back at it as a tremendous experience, that it obviously touched so many people. I mean, it's just an extraordinary phenomenon. I'm still, you can obviously tell, I'm still absolutely gobsmacked. I still, and I came to it late, to this part of it. I'm just stunned by it, actually.
Well, it was a special experience it's apparently for all of us. We were lucky to be able to work as if we were doing radio programs, where we're all behind the microphones interacting and having that luxury. I haven't done a lot of animation work since, but any that I've done has been me going into a studio doing my lines wild, talking to the director who may well have been in another state. That's a whole different kind of experience. So
and it's never been explained to me why they do that these days. Like you said, when we were working back then in the 80s, you're all in the studio at the same time.
Yeah.
Now you go in individually, do your line, and then somebody else comes in and does it. I don't understand that. For one thing, to me, acting is reacting really to the other actor. And when you're in there by yourself, I guess you have to be an especially good actor to make people think you're actually talking to somebody. But
it's true. I mean, I've done both now. So I've done alone in a studio with the director in another state, patched in, reading a reader there, all that. And then I've also, I worked on Bob's Burgers recently, and I had, the other cast members joined me on Zoom. They weren't there, but at least I could see them. But boy, those days of all of us showing up for work and knowing we were going to be together, this ensemble, this family, just like the excitement of whatever might be new, the things that I mean, there was never a day that we dragged ourselves into work. It was just, it was just always so much fun to be back in the room together and to make it happen.
I think I tell people often that we became a family. We worked together for years about 3 years to do all of ThunderCats, I think.
Yeah.
Because as you guys know, you do a setup, and then you have to save some time for the animators to animate the next ones, the writers to write new ones, because they didn't buy 100 at one time. Right. So we spend so much time together, I think, that and luckily in our situation, I think we really all got along well together. I don't remember any fights, any talking behind other people's backs or anything like that. It was just, I think we all knew how lucky we were, really.
Yeah.
Well, I think also, that those relationships are undoubtedly reflected in the performance. I mean, there's, that's, technology is a wonderful thing. I mean, I don't have to go into the British Library for 3 years to research a book on South Africa, but it's destroyed so much. I think, the whole interaction between director and actors, or between the actors, or whether it's on stage or in, maybe I'm talking through my ear hole, but it's a very personal business for me, very personal. Yeah. And I don't think you can replicate that on Zoom. you just said, Larry, that acting is reacting. However we define it, it's just not the same. It's not the same if you're not all together.
Yeah.
And, if you say, well, it's COVID, or, well, it's too expensive to do, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, okay. I mean, some of that's true, but some of it's just sheer
Bullshit.
a combination, I think, probably pretty rude to say this, a combination of laziness and not caring on the part of the people behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
We don't care. We can say this on that.
Yeah.
We don't care. And a lack of respect too. Well, just get in the room and, we'll have a director in Outer Mongolia and they can talk to you. And I think there's definitely a lack of respect for the various arts involved. I think it's a shame. I mean, you could argue, well, maybe the audience just doesn't care anymore. I don't know. But
if that's all they have to watch, that's all they're going to watch. I mean,
right.
What do they got to compare with?
As actors who are in that situation, I mean, we have this very kind of rich and, wonderful memory of being an ensemble in person together in a room. And there's nothing like it. You're right. There's nothing like it. You can't replace it. And yet, because we're actors and because we're always being asked to adapt and create or figure out how to reach the goal. I mean, we've all found ways to adapt to try to bring that presence to the work, even when you're not with the other people. And I think also it depends on the director, it depends on the other reader, it depends on whether you can, I feel for the editors because, they're the ones who have to figure out how to make that human timing to fool you to believing that we were together when we weren't together, so it becomes, it kind of expands the responsibility of the art form into the editing realm.
I agree.
So I think we're going to go ahead and wrap things up. This, again, honestly, thank you, Larry, Peter, Maggie. Thank you so much for, taking some time to to join us for this episode. It was great having, all 3 and 4, you too, Peter Lawrence, you too. But it was great being able to have you all together with this.
Thank you, Sean.
And we would love to, again, if we're able to bring you guys back, if you're interested, we'll get all the recording cast together and literally have, all the recording staff. We'll have the staff, the cast, have everyone back. So it'll be a big old reunion across the board. We would love to set that up at some time in the future.
Talk about chaos.
Yeah, right? I can only imagine some of the stories that'll come out that, well, speaking of editing, we'll have to edit out that can't go out to the public.
More outtake.
Sean, thank you so much for being persistent and making it possible for me to come and see everybody. This has been an utter pleasure to be back in the room with you, Larry, and with you, Peter, and to see you again, Peter Lawrence, so far away. I can't tell you how pleased I am that we got to hang out.
The feeling is
very happy to have met you finally, Larry and Peter, and you again. Right? So that's great. No, we should definitely we try and get the sound system a bit better figured out up front. We should definitely get everybody on together.
I'll try to show up on time next time too.
Next bring some food.
Yeah, right. There'll be snacks. We'll have catering.
Potluck. We'll have a potluck podcast.
Thank you, guys. Great to see you again.
Okay.
Again, thank you, everyone, and hopefully, maybe Maggie will see us at some shows in the future. We'll see.
I would love it. I would love
everyone together. But
let's do it.
All right, everyone watching, thank you for joining us on this podcast. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, do all the stuff you're supposed to do on podcasts. And we hope you enjoyed it. And be sure to tune in next time. And until next time,
ThunderCats.
Ho!